You're welcome to the Nigeria Economic Discourse, where we look at issues around the Nigerian economy and how it's being shaped, particularly at this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. We meet to discuss the issues.
Dr. Temitope Oshikoya, CEO of Nextnomics Advisory, a cerebral economist in the country. Thank you, sir, for being on the show.
Thank you.
We also expect, yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. We're also expecting to have guest Mr. Bosun Omofaye, CEO of Frontline Africa Reports, and once he comes in, he will join on the show. So let's move on, sir. And how is the experience so far, the lockdown? I mean, it's day 8 in Lagos.
Well, I think we should be appreciative of what the Lagos State government has done, especially Governor Sanwo-Olu. And I think it's good for every one of us. The first short-term measures is this social distancing. I think it's good for everybody. We should all try to abide by it as well as to at least reduce the rate of infection.
Okay, sir. Okay. Now, in the course of this pandemic, the federal government has given us several interventions, and the latest was the 500 billion naira approved by the president. It also seeks to borrow about $7 billion from DFIs like IMF, World Bank, even down to Islamic Development Bank. Now we're looking at how this level of borrowings and this stimulus plan can be tied to productivity, which is very critical at this time in the economy. What are your thoughts, sir?
Well, thank you very much. I've always had this belief that economic development, sustainable economic development depends on productivity. And productivity depends on incentives, institutions, and innovation, the interaction of those three. And it is my belief that in a mixed economy, yes, you need the market to enable you to provide incentives for people, but you also need institutions, such as government institutions. I wrote an article on ProShare last week, essentially saying that yes, the market is important, but the government and institutions are also extremely very important. And we are seeing this all over the world, globally, that you need a mix of the two. Essentially, I think government intervention at this point in time is very crucial because what is happening is like a negative public good. The coronavirus is essentially serving more like a negative public good. So the government needed to take measures to counteract it. You cannot wait for the market to do that. Indeed, essentially, the market has essentially been severely affected as a result of what is going on. So I believe that the issue of debt, of course, is extremely important. But at this point in time, government cannot just sit back and watch and allow the coronavirus to destroy lives and livelihoods. So it's extremely critical that they have decided to intervene with this 500 billion naira intervention fund. I mean, when you look at it, relative to what is being done in places like the US, is still small compared to Nigeria's GDP as a percentage of Nigeria's GDP. Secondly, I think the idea of going to the MDBs, multilateral development banks, is probably a good idea because at this point in time, Fitch rating has just downgraded Nigeria. So it's difficult to go to the capital market. You have ratings that are almost below, how should I put it, that are almost below market grades. So going to the market at this point in time would be too costly. So the MDBs are in a position to be able to give you grants and loans at much lower cost that can then be used to intervene in stopping this pandemic. And when you look at it, at this point in time, and again the MDBs, their lending and grants are likely going to be long term. You understand? Of course, the IMF, I believe, is an emergency fund, but the ADB and the World Bank and the Islamic Development Bank are likely going to be, let's say, 10-year term structure, which I think is manageable. If they go to the capital market, they might not be able to get concessional rates as with the MDBs. And beyond that, I think you'll also get some kind of tie-in expertise from the MDBs, from the World Bank, from the African Development Bank, in terms of helping the government to be able to counteract this pandemic. So I think it's a good idea. We are in a war, if you can put it that way. And the government cannot just fold its hands, hoping that the market will solve all problems.
Yeah, when you look comparatively at economies like the US, Japan, Canada, it's more of ensuring that these interventions affect businesses, SMEs, which are drivers of the economy, and the households. From your analysis and, of course, exposure as an economist, how would you be seeing this tied to productivity? Because incomes are affected. Nigeria has a large informal sector. How do you see these interventions begin to impact those key areas that keeps driving our economy?
Yes, again, you see, if we look at the way the market intelligence economists say, you will probably just say that you do your free market, and therefore government should not support businesses. So government should not support households. But we need to be pragmatic, economic pragmatism. That's what I believe in. I believe that, as you said, in the US, I think the intervention is divided into 3 or 4 key areas. One is to support certain key sectors, such as the leisure industry, hospitality industry, the health sector. I think the central bank has actually, Nigeria has also tried to do something with their intervention fund, basically trying to support the health sector. So at the end of the day, if you don't, good health is good wealth. If you can put it that way. If your people have good health, they can be more productive in terms of their businesses, in terms of the work that they do. And I think the idea that the free market will solve this kind of problem is just it's a non-starter. So as a result, we have essentially in the past weakened the capacity of the public sector, institutions, especially in health sector, in education, to be able to address this kind of pandemic. And in essence, we did not have a pandemic playbook that will enable us to solve an issue such as this. I believe the intervention should be directed first to the health sector, and I believe about 102 billion naira is being targeted towards this with the fiscal measures. The central bank is also trying to help in terms of linking our pharmaceutical industries with the global pharmaceutical industries and so on. So in a sustainable manner, it is important that lives and livelihood are supported, and the health sector is an important one. As to businesses, it is quite difficult to say you will, because we also need to be careful that we don't have what we call moral hazard in terms of how do you see which businesses to support. And as you yourself said, and as the IMF has actually carried out by the IMF, 40% of our economy is informal sector. So the informal sector are basically individually based. So that means we need social insurance and social welfare system that will enable us to have automatic fiscal stabilizers in terms of transfer to some of this informal sector. And the sort of thing that was done in the agricultural sector with the e-wallet for transfer of fertilizers and so on is something we can replicate, okay, by using our information system to monitor the distribution of disbursement and so on and so forth. That means you need an efficient database. You need to work with the National Bureau of Statistics. You need to work with the ICT ministry, the Digital Economy and Information Ministry, to build our infrastructure, our information infrastructure base. All of these are needed to enable us to be able to reach out to the poor and to the most vulnerable. And I think over the longer term, we need automatic stabilizers such as these transfers, social security, insurance system, pension. And I think this is what the US is building upon, because they already have those systems in place.
Now, when we look at support to the subnationals who are closer to the people, the government has said they will also provide those fiscal support to the states at this time. From your perspective, what are the key areas you would like to see in terms of interventions that really impact states who would need to really manage the situation? When you look at the distribution so far of the confirmed cases from Lagos even down to Edo states.
At the end of the day, if you look at the health system is not something that is just at the federal level. It has to be at the states and at the local level, because if you want to go to hospitals, if you are living in Lagos, you're not just going to go to Abuja or going to Port Harcourt and vice versa. You are going to stay within your local vicinity. So I think the state apparatus and the local government apparatus are extremely very important. I believe the government has indicated that they will provide they will support about 1,000 people or more in each local government. This is a good idea, but they need to build on that. Secondly, is actually the importance of decentralization to the state government and to the local government. So over the medium to longer term, that's what we need to work on. Strengthen the local government capacity, strengthen the state capacity to be able to handle emergencies such as this, handle healthcare issues such as this, handle educational issues that are emerging. And indeed, when you look very carefully, with 36 state government, 777 local government, they are much in a better position to reach people and to support livelihoods and lives at the more local level. And I believe that in addition to the issue of decentralization, we also realize that the states are burdened by debt. And I understand the central bank is trying to have an interest rate moratorium. Yes. This is a good idea that we can at least give them some breathing room, give them some forbearance, not debt forgiveness, some forbearance to be able to handle this matter. And I think a lot can be learned from what Lagos State has been doing, from what Governor Sanwo-Olu has been doing in Lagos State. And I think we can replicate some of this in the other states. But never, as you clearly indicated, these measures has to be taken more at the local level than even at the federal level. And so if you look at the case of Germany, for example, one of the things that they said is that Germany has been able to contain this thing because the states, Germany is also a federal structure.
Yes, federal structure.
The equivalent of the state in Germany has actually been more proactive in tracking, in testing, and in tracing those people that are affected. And I think this is something we need to look at. Okay,
that's a nice one. Now, when we look at our current national debt stock, the National Bureau of Statistics just told us that it's about 27.4 trillion naira at Q4 2019. That will be a rising national debt stock. We still have a challenge of low revenue. So we have a twin challenge of low revenue and rising national debt. How can we navigate these two at this challenging time of the pandemic? Because, like the IMF, World Bank said that vulnerable economies, developing economies, particularly in Africa, face this challenge of low revenue and high debt, and Nigeria is among them. How do we navigate this? challenging phase?
Well, it is true that we have limited fiscal space, as we call it in economics, at this point in time, that already your debts are very high. Secondly, your revenue base, you are not tapping them very well. Your tax rate are relatively lower. And indeed, if you look at overall in Nigeria, revenue to GDP is about 7% or so, compared to 15% average in Africa, and about 25% or more in the OECD countries. So, but at this point in time, at this particular point in time, I have no problem with government incurring more debt to be able to solve an emergency. So the short-term measures that have been taken are appropriate. So in the short term, we need to support the government even in the midst of this low fiscal space. But over the medium term, we need to build public institutions to enable the government to be able to widen the base for tax revenue, to collect efficiency ratio, collection efficiency ratio to increase it from a very low rate to a much higher rate, to strengthen the revenue agencies, and to also on the expenditure side, to prune our expenditure so that we focus more on priority areas. So there are three key areas that we need to focus on this. The first is, over the medium term, we need to manage our debt very carefully. Secondly, we need to mobilize more revenue by improving efficiency collection rate and reducing corruption in terms of revenue that actually goes to government coffers, and also in terms of public expenditure. Let us prioritize, focus more on those things that the government can really have large impact. Health, education, social welfare transfers, infrastructure. In essence, you need to prioritize your expenditure and streamline them in such a way that you live within your means.
And when we look at this, what you said, you earlier mentioned the Fitch ratings downgrading of Nigeria to B, and others have also brought out their ratings, and it's a downgrade. But from Fitch, we're seeing that for us to get back to that positive rating, we need to take that credible path of smaller fiscal deficits from stronger mobilization of non-oil revenues and improved public finance management. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it ties back to what I just indicated. Now, the Fitch rating, when you look at it, it basically will increase the cost of borrowing, especially from the private sector capital market. And secondly, it might reduce foreign portfolio investment and so on. So, in essence, those ratings, they provide some kind of discipline for countries to discipline themselves, macroeconomic management, and so on and so forth. However, I think we need to go beyond that, beyond macroeconomic management. My perspective, having been an economist, an accountant, and also having read law, is that institutional governance needs to be improved. And institutional governance includes this issue of revenue mobilization, public financial management, public expenditure management, reducing corruption, enforcing contracts, ensuring that property rights are well defined, and ensuring that business environments are more conducive, so that people can do their business in a transparent manner, and they can make investment. Investors don't like uncertainties. That's the key thing. And when you have weak institutional governance, you have issues. If you look at countries in Africa that have grown at a rapid rate over the last 10 years, 7% to 10%, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Senegal, Tanzania, and so on. The institutional governance, I'm not saying that they are perfect, but they are much stronger. Take Rwanda, for example, as an example. They are much more stronger, and it's not that there are no corruptions in such places, but they are much more limited. And the resources are efficiently mobilized and effectively utilized. So beyond macroeconomic management, we need to strengthen our institutional governance. We need to strengthen our ability to ensure that incentives are given to businesses, not in an ad hoc manner, but in a very transparent manner that will enable them to continue to improve on innovation, increase productivity, and at the end of the day, without productivity, all this we are talking about will not last. You need productivity for long-lasting, sustainable economic growth.
Yes, and talking about productivity, this pandemic is not a death sentence in itself, but a learning point for Nigeria, where it was around the fact that this is an opportunity for us to reset our economy again, take that hard decision to grow our economy, boost it beyond oil. Is it not now time to reset economic architecture beyond oil, where you still even have to set your budget benchmark on crude oil? All those kind of things. Don't we now see this opportunity to reset the economic framework?
Yeah. To some extent, Nigeria's economy is diversified in the sense that in terms of production, oil contributes maybe about 10% to GDP. Agriculture still remains the backbone, about 20%. Yeah. Manufacturing, about 12%, and so on. Now, even within the oil industry, you can see diversify. Petrochemicals, and so on. If you look at what has happened in places like the Middle East, places like Qatar, and so on and so forth, they've been able to diversify their economy in such a way that, yes, they depend on oil, but look at the hospitality industry, look at the tourism industry, look at the real estate industry. In essence, the oil industry over a period of 40 years should have been able to enable us to move, to use the resources that we generate from oil to build the capacity in other sectors, to build infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So in terms of production, we have to continue to diversify the economy. And in reality, very few countries, especially large economies like Nigeria, have been able to diversify the economy or even move more people out of poverty without manufacturing sector. In essence, people have to move from the farm to the factory. They have to move, when they move from the rural areas to the urban areas, they should be able to find places, factories where they could work, not the sort of informal businesses where you see so many people, unemployed people on Third Mainland Bridge, on streets, and so on and so forth. We need to make them more productive by moving them into manufacturing, by moving them into sectors such as digital sectors. And I think to some extent, Nigerian youth, educated youth, you have to appreciate what they are doing. I know a few of them that are essentially trying to build the digital economy, and they don't want to be employed by anybody. They want to be able to stand on their own, and I think we need to continue to encourage them. Our diversification should also go more in terms of revenue diversification.
Yes.
Instead of just relying on oil, we need to widen the base by building those economic base that will enable us to get more revenue from non-oil sectors, and also enable people to move more from the informal sector towards more formal sector economy. So it can be done. Countries have done it. China has done it. And it requires strong institutions, effective and efficient governance system. It requires incentives for the market, for businesses, and so on. And it requires ability of people to innovate and contribute their own productive measures towards a diversified economy.
Very, very nice, incisive take from you, sir. So as we wrap up now, we just like, even with the warnings of an impending recession, what would you like the government to do? What would you like citizens to also do at this time navigating this pandemic?
First is an ideology, what I call that is a philosophical and ideological basis. We need economic pragmatism and economic pluralism. This idea that the market alone will solve our problem, it cannot. The banks say they are contributing 1 billion naira here and there. It's good, but it's a drop in the ocean in terms of 500 billion and so on and so forth. So we need to realize that government and institutions are important for some by they have put in place. Secondly, by building the health sector and contributing towards the development of the health sector. And over time, let us strengthen what is doing to complement what the private sector is doing, and also to complement macroeconomic management. Without strong and effective government, you cannot have sustainable economic development. History has shown it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Temitope Oshikoya, for your very incisive contribution today. It's been really rich engaging you on this Nigerian economic discourse. Thank you very much, and we should continue to stay safe during this period. Thank you.
Thank you for engaging me.
Yes, and that will be all for this special edition of the Nigeria Economic Discourse, powered on Web TV, Chronomics Watch, on ProShare. We wish you to stay safe and look forward to a very engaging discussion tomorrow by 10 a.m. Join us on our channels and Twitter channels all showing on the screen. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day.